Hey everyone, this is Carson with Top Productions, and it's time to take a look at the Bant Commander 2013 pre-constructed deck, Evasive Maneuvers. This deck's analysis was written by Top Productions writer Oren Meyer. This green, white, and blue commander deck features two very unique angles of control, namely tapping down your opponent's threats and blinking creatures to get multiple uses of powerful enter-to-the-battlefield effects. Let's take a look at the brand new cards in the deck and see how they contribute to its strategies. Angel of Finality. Up until now, white has had limited ways to exile massive amounts of cards from an opponent's graveyard, but this cheap flyer does just that. She's also begging to be abused with blink effects. Darksteel Mutation. This card has received errata which states that the enchanted creature also loses all of its other card types and creature types, which can be very important against a tribal deck. Interestingly, enchanting your own creature with this aura can actually prove beneficial at times, since this creature won't lose any other auras, equipment, or +1/+1 counters it previously had. But most of the time, it's a means to turn a dangerous threat into nothing more than a blocker. Tempt with Glory. This sorcery can be a blowout. It's best used when you're planning to set up an Alpha Strike. The Temptation cards also make decisions by your opponents that much more difficult. Unexpectedly Absent. There's been discussion of Unexpectedly Absent appearing in the Legacy format, but in Commander it's a very good card as well. With the last set of pre-constructed decks, we got Chaos Warp. This is the white's version, and it's an instant speed way to tuck a general. Do it in response to a tutor, and suddenly your opponent has a choice. Go get the card I was going to get in the first place, or fish my general back out of my deck before it gets shuffled in even deeper. Diviner Spirit. Aside from having freaky artwork, this card is just odd in general. It has no evasion and a low power and toughness compared to its mana cost, but its ability to provide both you and another player with a steady stream of cards could mean that this makes you allies instead of enemies. After all, what's 2 damage compared to drawing a pair of fresh new cards? Djinn of Infinite Deceits. This big-butted flyer's ability to swap creatures goes far beyond just taking your opponent's best non-legendary threat in exchange for one of your lowly tokens. This may be the most political new card in the deck, allowing you to shift the board around for the advantage of whomever you choose. Bane of Progress. This card is like the ultimate double-edged sword. While you could end up with a ridiculously huge creature while blowing up a lot of your opponent's permanents, that would require you to not be playing nearly as many artifacts and enchantments as you might otherwise. Restore. In the right deck, it's a better Farseek or Rampant Growth. Otherwise, it's a way to either recover a land from your own graveyard, or steal a powerful utility land from an opponent's. Surveyor's Scope. It's a bit odd to have this card in a deck that's playing green, but even with the possibility of ramp, sometimes you can fall behind. And it's nice to have a way to bolster your land count and prevent your opponents from getting too far ahead. Used with fetch land abilities on the stack for maximum benefit and laughs. Opal Palace. Last time around, we got Command Tower in each deck. Now there's Opal Palace, a land that makes commanders much scarier as the game goes on. Opal Palace can be used to make aggressive generals more powerful, but it can also turn defensive generals into more efficient blockers, or allow them to somehow abuse the extra +1/+1 counters. Curse of the Forsaken, Inertia, and Predation. Encouraging the players at the table to target someone else is a great defensive maneuver, and the curses do a fine job of that. Evasive Maneuvers also features reprints of some very powerful cards that any Commander aficionado will love to get their hands on. Flicker Wisp. Did we mention that there were quite a few blink effects in this deck? Whether it's clearing out pesky blockers for a turn or resetting a powerful permanent, Flicker Wisp does more than its fair share of heavy lifting. Karmic Guide. Yes, that's right folks, Karmic Guide. Put it simply, Karmic Guide is one of the strongest white creatures out there for Commander, allowing you to bring back creature after creature from your graveyard, with flicker effects allowing you to bypass her echo cost. Kurtar's Wrath. This hidden gem from Odyssey can easily leave you with the only creatures on the board, as Threshold is very easy to reach in a typical game of Commander. Mirror Entity. He fits into any tribal deck playing white, and he can boost any army of creatures up by an insane amount as well. What's not to love? Azami, Lady of Scrolls. A strong general on her own, Azami can generate insane card advantage while in the company of other wizards. Lu Xun, Scholar General. No, he's not a particularly strong creature, but given how hard Portal 3 Kingdoms cards are to find, it's nice of wizards to make creatures like Lu Xun more readily available. Basalt Monolith. If there's one thing Commander players love, it's getting lots of mana fast, and Basalt Monolith is a great way to get it. Going from 3 mana to 7 often leads to ridiculous plays, and there are a lot of ways to untap Monolith for cheap. Conjurer's Closet. Blink a creature every turn for free. The number of juicy targets for this reprint from Absent Restored is way too long to list here. Sword of the Perunes. Aside from contributing to both offense and defense, the ability to pay 3 mana to tap or untap the equipped creature can be abused to great effect by many creatures, especially those that tap for large amounts of mana or to draw cards. Command Tower and Soul Ring. They're back, and they're still staples. Evasive Maneuvers includes 3 potential generals in all 3 colors, 2 of which are new, while the 3rd is a reprint. Each of them is a viable choice, and outside of the pre-constructed decks, each one can prove to be a powerful commander. The reprinted general in this deck is Rubinius Soulsinger, a 5-mana 2/3 creature from Legends that can tap to take control of a creature for as long as she remains tapped. A deck with Rubinia as a general tends to be very defensive, and green, white, and blue has some of the best defenses in the game. One strategy involving Rubinia is to surround her with powerful enchantments that slowly but surely lock down your opponents and give you card advantage, preventing them from attacking or targeting you while you build up an army of tokens and eventually overwhelm them. Another deck with Rubinia could involve more straight-up control cards, such as counterspells and wrath effects, to play a political game and keep the board clear. Utility creatures would keep the stream of control flowing, and eventually a few big fatties could finish off any remaining opponents. Daravi Imperial Tactician is the first of the 2 brand new generals for Bant. Her ability to go directly from the command zone to the battlefield for only 4 mana at instant speed means that she will be much cheaper to keep around than many other generals. And her ability to tap and untap permanents can get out of control if you have enough mana or attacking creatures. Daravi herself can be the focal point of a deck, flashing in to mess up combat or trigger enter the battlefield effects for a low cost. If you include sacrifice outlets, you can even bring Daravi out of the combat zone several times in a single turn, allowing you to manipulate permanents at will. Another way to abuse Daravi's untapping ability is with a large army of creatures, preferably one with evasion. If you can keep swinging and connecting with your opponents, you can untap a large number of permanents, allowing you to cast even more threats or untap blockers to defend yourself against any counterattacks. The third and final 3-color general for the Bant deck is Rune of the Hidden Realm. While Daravi is a very diverse general, Rune is also a commander around whom you can build several different types of decks when you consider his solid stats in combination with his built-in flicker effect. His sizable body could lend itself to a Voltron-style deck, where you toss all sorts of powerful equipment and auras onto Rune and start swinging. You could even use his activated ability after you declare attacks to get troublesome blockers out of the way. What we're going to look at doing today, however, is making a deck that utilizes Rune's flicker ability to great effect. While the pre-constructed deck is certainly playable, for a minimal investment of about $20 to $25, you can replace some of the cards with ones that fit the strategy better. The key to abusing a flickering general is to include creatures with abilities that trigger when they enter or leave the battlefield. Coiling Oracle gives you either card draw or ramp for cheap. Archaeomancer and Eternal Witness. Get back key cards from your graveyard and put them into your hand. Sun Titan. More graveyard recursion, this time with the added benefit of putting things directly onto the battlefield. Revelark. It's very good with Karmic Guide, and there are a lot of other low-power creatures in the deck that you certainly won't mind getting back. Brutalizer Exarch, Sylvan Primordial, and Terastodon. Flicker these guys to take care of your opponent's nasty non-creature permanents over and over again. Side effects may include ramp and a lot of elephant tokens. Phyrexian and Jester. Repeatable exile on a creature that can be very large. Diluvian Primordial. Using other people's instants and sorceries against them is quite satisfying. Plus, it's a sizable flying body. Muldrifter and Prime Speaker Sagana. Drawing cards is good. Drawing insane amounts of cards thanks to repeatedly entering the battlefield is better. Lavinia of the 10th. Lock down token armies or make utility cards with low converted mana costs worthless for the turn. Village Bellringer. He allows you to reuse Rune's ability again and again, especially when targeted with Conjurer's Closet. Several other utility cards can help make a Rune deck even harder to stop. Deadeye Navigator. No blink or flicker deck would be complete without the card that gives you access to nearly unlimited blink effects. Prophet of Prufix. Suddenly, every turn is your turn, as you can drop down powerful creatures every time someone untaps, and your untapped lands will help you use Rune again. Soul of the Harvest and Aura Shards. With all of the creatures entering the battlefield under your control time and time again, you may as well draw some cards and destroy some artifacts and enchantments while you're at it. Strionic Resonator. You can use the Tuning Fork of Doom to copy any of the powerful effects triggered off your creatures hitting the field, and there are a lot of them. Illusionist Bracers. Double up on Rune's activated ability. The total price for these 20 cards to add to the deck comes out to just over $20. So now that we've added 20 cards to the deck, let's see what cards we can cut from the pre-constructed list to make this Rune deck work. Rubinius Soulsinger and Daravi Imperial Tactician. There can only be one. Hada Spy Patrol, Kazandu Tuskcaller, and Phantom Nantuko. When you frequently flicker creatures, that doesn't lend itself well to abilities that put counters on those creatures, so these 3 are out. Control Magic and Presence of Gond. As with counters, auras don't work too well with blink decks. Flicker Form. This might be the exception to the previous statement, but this particular aura is meant for more of a Voltron strategy than what we're going for. Diviner Spirit and Lucian's Scholar General. A flicker-based deck won't rely too much on combat damage to gain its card advantage, so these 2 creatures don't quite make the cut. Borrowing 100,000 Arrows. There are far more reliable and repeatable card draw spells to be had in Prime Speaker Zagana and Muldrifter. Leonin Blade Trap and Thunderstaff. This Rune build is far less defensive than other Bant decks, so it doesn't have much need for these 2 artifacts. Airy Mystics. While giving your team Shroud as a useful ability, it will be even more advantageous for you to blink out your creatures in response to any removal spells. Skyward Eye Prophets and Thornwind Fairies. Tapping abilities and flicker effects don't mix very well, as the creature will have summoning sickness upon its return to the battlefield. Selesnya Guildmage and Tempt with Glory. You are unlikely to win the game through the use of tokens or a large buffed army. Aether Mage's Touch. It's only a one-shot, and you may not even hit a creature with it, so its unreliability puts Aether Mage's Touch on the sidelines. Bane of Progress. Despite being one of the coolest new cards to come out in Commander 2013, there are too many important artifacts and enchantments in this deck to run him safely. So there you have it. We've taken a look at the sweet new cards and reprints in the Evasive Maneuvers pre-constructed deck, and we've even shown how, with very little cash, you can fine-tune the deck and make it more streamlined. Be sure to subscribe for more videos and the rest of the Commander 2013 pre-con videos. I'm Carson with Topical Productions, and as always, thanks for watching.